On October 24, everyone will already be watching Venom: The Last Dance in all theaters. And today I'm going to show you some behind the scenes of this franchise. But you are in luck, because besides this new part of the movie that will be in theaters soon, I will show you all the past parts so you know what to expect from this part. Enjoy it! Venom 2 really has a lot of crazy action and awesome CGI. For example, let's take those tendrils in this scene, and they're practically alive. Carnage's hand grip actually doesn't look as obvious as the tendrils anymore. Instead of using real tendrils, they've resorted to using wires and harnesses. Looking at these shots and imagining it all live, holding onto wires and twisting around isn't that comfortable, but honestly, the end result is worth it.
Oh, mother son of a bitch, my bad. I couldn't even remember the very first step.
Now I would like to touch on some chickens. Yes, you heard right, chickens that were in the kitchen with Eddie Brock and Venom. Do you think they're all real? Yeah, they're all real, except for the ones that got hurt. But don't worry, no birds were harmed in the making of the movie. Understandably, it's a lot easier to work with CGI birds than real ones, but the team really hit the jackpot by creating amazingly professional chickens.
There's a chicken in the background of the shop. Can you see it? It's just here. We had a couple of chickens that worked with us, and they were all very professional. They all turned up on time and, were very, very undemanding and didn't leave a mess anywhere. So they're perfect chickens to work with. But keep an eye out for the chickens in this scene. They're a fundamental player.
Does everyone remember the living room scene from the first Venom? I think yes, because it stands out as one of the most intense fights. Perhaps this scene has gotten so much attention because of the power imbalance, namely 1 against 3. Not very fair, is it? But because of the fact that he's pretty strong on his own, thanks to Venom's strength, things turned out to be pretty fair. The CGI in this scene really emphasizes the amazing and powerful transformation that Tom Hardy goes through. There was a lot of stage combat and practical effects in this scene that helped show the battle so well. So here as the time of fights in the apartment begins mess. Furniture and things flying in all directions. All this was filmed right on the set. The creative team had to work hard trying to collect all the scattered things. The strings were used to create the effects we see in the movie. Hardy's stunt double, Jacob Tamuri, he was strapped down and actually crashed into furniture. Pretty wild, right?
Whilst being physical and quite violent.
In addition, the fight included a brutal kettlebell toss. Luckily, the actors were unharmed because there were no real weights on set. As you all have already realized, this is the work of our CGI, because CGI is not only massive explosions and crazy creatures. Of course, sometimes there are occasions when you need to create images for more mundane or practical effects.
Lights get thrown out of the window, all of Eddie's possessions, clothes, all manner of things. So these were all on wires, which literally flew out of the window, combined with the visual effects of tendrils then grabbing those things and pulling them through.
Tom Hardy really put in the effort, whether the cameras were on, or they were just going through the motions of a scene. When it came time for him to do that big apartment fight as Eddie Brock against Venom, Hardy really let out those injury sounds pretty intensely. It was like he was really getting hit, making sounds that seemed so real, even though he clearly wasn't facing off against Venom in real life. It was like he had just come out of a real brawl. Everyone knows that the voice of Venom has always been in Tom Hardy's head, and it turns out it was in the truest sense of the word. So before filming, the actor single-handedly worked through scenes with Venom, and eventually Hardy recorded every line. He put in headphones and listened to all of Venom's lines as they came in, allowing him to respond right on the spot. Hardy really took the opportunity to improvise, chat with Venom, and add a special touch to the scene. Through this clever technique, he was able to bring both characters to life and make them different from each other. Sometimes the sound guys would record his lines in the morning and then play them back during filming so that he would perform them with them. Andy Serkis has extensive experience with CGI characters, and being an actor himself, he just couldn't help but step in to occasionally direct Tom Hardy in his roles. For Serkis, immersing himself in the character's way of thinking was crucial, especially since Venom's lines are constantly changing. The acting and directing duo had a chance to pitch ideas to each other and come up with some fresh lines together. Before editing, the team had to record all the possible choices to make sure they had enough material to work with.
Oh, to act with it as well, yeah, oh, right, let's say, sorry. Let's make a move.
The rave scene in the last Venom is awesome. All those lights, puppets, and non-stop action. It's a real treat to watch. It was a lot of fun to shoot this. The scene was created quite flexibly, which gave director Andy Serkis the opportunity to dive headfirst into filming and work closely with the cast and creative team. There were 650 extras on set and energy was at an all-time high, which contributed greatly to the story. The sets were absolutely stunning, with huge puppets and a ton of bright lights everywhere. It was very easy for the actors to visualize themselves and act out the big party scene. When it comes to throwing people into a scene, you always get a ton of wires and harnesses. In the first movie, we see an outside force tossing him around, but off-screen it's more like magic. Hardy was actually hooked up to wires and harnesses, which made it safe to shoot these tricky stunts. Everything looks amazing in rehearsals, so it's no surprise that the final product turned out great as well. But you know, repeatedly crashing into a wall probably wasn't the most pleasant experience for the actor. Tom Hardy really does a great job with his role. I mean about the transformation from human to supervillain that we see on screen, and it all happened thanks to some impressive CGI work. The VFX team really went all out and created animation for every frame we see. It definitely took a lot of time and skill, but it was the best way to make sure the transformation looked so slick and realistic. The detailed animation makes Venom's interactions with people and the world seem so real and believable. One of the coolest scenes in the first Venom shows this massive mess of black tendrils taking to the streets, moving from flat on the ground to a powerful stance. Even though his movements seem perfect in the final version, the reality behind the scenes was quite another thing. The actors were really focused on nailing the choreography to help the CGI team get the movements just right. They needed the best footage to really showcase Venom on screen in a big and impactful way. In the end, they really weren't let down at all.
But these are very, very difficult characters to anthropomorphize, to actually make human, because of the size of the jaws up here, and also there's very little that you can get out of the eyebrows or eye movements. What we managed to do is to put in very subtle sort of shifts in imaginary eyebrows, if you like, and we've increased hugely the amount of lip molding around the teeth when Venom's speaking.
Tom Hardy himself performed many of the stunts and fight scenes in the movie, but in those moments that were too risky or could hurt him, he was assisted by a stunt double. The actor who plays Eddie in Venom had a tough time, especially since he underwent 2 knee surgeries just 8 weeks before filming began. So Jacob Tamori went on stage when Eddie had to throw himself over a wall or jump through windows. In scenes with motorcycles, Hardy coped with himself, but when the situation became too risky, the work involved a specialist in stunts with serious driving skills. They did it all on a newer version of the bike. This time it's a Ducati Panigale, which is a superbike, and that's what he rides in the movie. This team really pays attention to every little detail. The motorcycle chase scene is very elaborate and really stands out as an epic moment in the first movie. Even though the scene is only a few minutes long, there was a lot of work involved before filming started. They wanted to make sure everything went smoothly while still getting some amazing footage. Can you believe it? The entire chase was filmed on camera, and with the help of CGI, the whole scene came out so smooth and detailed. Stunt doubles were used for the actual ride through the city streets, with Robbie Madison and Joe Dryden performing some legendary motorcycle stunts. Given all the careful planning, it makes sense that there were about 40 cars involved during filming, which were eventually totaled. Although the CGI makes the nosedive into the flames look awesome, stuntman Dryden actually walked through the fire to give the crew the best shot, which was then polished off with special effects. Well, what I had to pay attention to the scene where Tom literally flew around the bend. The 2 weeks spent making the metal plate for the bike was totally worth it. It really allows the motorcycle to rush at such speed. Filming was a real adventure, and the end result really brings a cool, unexpected twist to the whole sequence. The visual details of Venom really tie the whole masterpiece together. In Motorcycle Sandwich, the performers were actually in cars and Hardy was on a motorcycle, but the entire scene was actually filmed with parked cars and a blue screen set up behind them. This staging gave Hardy some awesome chances to really shine on the motorcycle without worrying about his safety. The CGI really brings everything to life, enhancing the sets and effects to make the moment even more suspenseful. Robbie Madison really came face to face with danger as he prepared for this massive jump on the notoriously steep Bullet Hill. This was the performer's first jump in America, and it was quite impressive. The team had a limited number of attempts to perform the stunt, so they decided to use CGI to make the scene look amazing in the movie. After 3 stunt jumps, Madison finally started to pick up the sounds of cars crashing, and it all hit him pretty hard. The effects they added later made the jump even more legendary. You're probably wondering how they managed to keep all those stunt drivers safe. Jack shared some secrets with us. For starters, they cover the car windows with sheets of Lexan, a very strong plastic. Making sure the racers are safe was not as easy as it seemed. In addition to jumps and wheelie stunts, most of the high-speed riding was done by Hardy's third stuntman, motorcycle racer Jimmy Roberts. He chose not to wear a helmet, which was quite a risky move, especially since some of the scenes in San Francisco were filmed on a dark and rainy night. The weather was very much in keeping with the dark atmosphere of the movie, but the roads were also quite slippery for motorcyclists. Luckily, Jack's team anticipated this complication and made sure the bikers were prepared by wetting the streets during rehearsal. The team had to think of every little detail to make the CGI of Venom look as realistic as possible when we brought him to life on screen. The colors Tom Hardy was wearing had a lot to do with the lighting. Hardy's burnt orange robe has a rather somber atmosphere, making it the perfect backdrop for Venom's appearance. If we hadn't paid attention to such little things, we wouldn't have ended up with the stunning visuals we see in the final version.
How does the symbiote fluid come out of his body? So a lot of work was done on finding ways of making it believable that all this fluid sort of emanates from inside and grows and sort of can shoot out.
There's a very cool moment in the second Venom movie where Venom jumps onto the hood of a car, and it looks very smooth thanks to some competent editing and post-production. But if we look behind the scenes, we see that it took a ton of preparation and safety measures to make this superhuman moment happen. It's very impressive to see how intensely the stunt is performed without any CGI. It shows how much acting the performers have to do to make these complex tasks look completely effortless. There were quite a few window jumps in the first Venom movie. Some were simple hallway jumps, breaking glass along the way, while others were epic leaps into the air. In both situations, CGI played a very important role in helping to set the stage and make it seem like the performers were actually flying, especially with all the cool details of Venom. Passion, humor, and special effects made Venom another great anti-hero film. The creative team's innovation in bringing these elements to life is impressive.